Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Let's take another look at Solana, see what's going on. We need to talk just briefly about these CME gaps, the support range I wanted to kind of just highlight and reiterate for you in case you didn't catch yesterday's video. And then more importantly too, just kind of recognize that it's very common for coins to kind of bounce off local support ranges, which is 147 for this coin. So we'll peek quickly at the liquidation data, kind of see what's going on in the back end there, and then kind of go from there. And I would say that at this point, Solana is still in very good shape, showing a lot of strength. If we get a fortunate pullback to the low 140s, I think that'd be an awesome place to consider a long, because I do personally still feel that with Bitcoin retracing to its lower fib levels here, there's a decent chance we do see that fair value gap or that support range getting filled for Bitcoin. If that happens, Solana should respond concurrently in some ways. You also got to recognize Solana is responding better than Bitcoin is right now too, so we may not get that aggressive of a pullback, which is awesome. We love to see that. But it also kind of implies that you may want to consider dollar cost averaging on the way down or averaging into your position. One way or the other, it's fairly beneficial. But at this point, I do think the Solana is more likely to continue higher than lower. We just need a period of consolidation or a retracement from Bitcoin first to see that happen. Before we get started, folks, please hit the like button. We get a tremendously low amount of likes per video based on the amount of awesome feedback I get from my community. You should be doing that every single time. So please, please, please help a brother out. All right, so take a look here. 152 to 156, we can see an upper area of liquidation, and then down below as well, 142 to 144. So those are kind of the areas that we're working within that's somewhat of a resistance and support range. Now, I do personally think that we may see low 40s, and if so, 142 seems like a likely culprit, or target rather, for that retracement. Because as you see, we saw 145 hit recently, just a few hours ago, when Bitcoin came down to 91.5. So if Bitcoin hits 90,000, it would seem practical to consider an entry at 140 to 142. Okay, so from a macro perspective, there's a chunk of liquidation, pretty big chunk at 142. That's just kind of fairly obvious. We can see liquidation delta is tapering off, which is great. This implies longs are either securing profits or maybe got stopped out there. But the simple way to understand it is when liquidation delta starts to kind of taper off, it's actually a very healthy thing. People want to see it overextended for too long. I don't think that's a good call. Like Bitcoin, for example, take a look at this here. 35 billion in liquidation long delta for the last day and a half. That's too high for too long. That leads to Bart Simpson's, where the price action just drops off a cliff. Okay, and this once more because there's way too many people leveraging longs. But it also kind of reiterates and reaffirms support too, because there's a lot of people in long positions. They don't feel like the price is going to pull back. So it usually does imply positivity as long as it's not for too long. Okay, if we see the same amount of liquidation delta for Bitcoin in 2 or 3 more days leading into the weekend, that's going to be bad news just because it's overextended for too long. Okay, Solana, we take a look here. Open interest 148, and then of course a little sparse between 140 and 145. So this reaffirms a lot of support. The likelihood of us seeing sub 135 is very low based on how much we can see here in long liquidation, or sorry, open interest rather. That really just kind of reiterates and reaffirms that there's a tremendous amount of buying pressure between 135 and 145. So once more, if we get lucky between the support range here and the price pulls back to that area, that's an awesome place to consider taking entry, just because we have a lot of volume there. And volume does speak a lot louder than you might think. No pun intended there with that, but the truth is you have to pay attention to volume. If you're a trader and you don't know what's going on with volume, you're not trading correctly. Okay, so as we can see here, our volume average is still below that norm. So, from a macro perspective, we don't have enough volume to continue higher. We need to see that increase in order to have that happen. So to break this threshold to 155, we need to see more volume. Keep in mind, volume is subjective to recent averages. So keep in mind, we're not like in bad shape by any stretch. There's still a lot of volume flowing into this coin. As we can see, our money flow index is super high. That's awesome. We want to see that. But this is an average of the last 14 days, and that kind of tells us the last 14 days have been really strong versus the previous 14. And that just kind of reaffirms that we have a short-term reversal. Okay, this may actually be more of a long-term reversal because we finally broke free from our descending trend. From a macro perspective here, we're in very, very good shape. Okay, once more, that's not an exact line, but being above the 50 and the 20-day SMA is super important. Okay, so 4-hour time frame, let's kind of talk about the same thing here, and that we are above all moving averages. The 20-day SMA is just below the price action. Generally speaking, it's a good consideration to buy that kind of dip. All right, at least from a short-term perspective. What I mean by that is just because this 20-day SMA we bounce off the 20-day SMA doesn't mean we're going to the moon. It just tells us in the short-term pullback, that's an obvious area of confluence, kind of just reiterating and reaffirming that we're in a nice little short-term bullish continuation pattern, even though we have this pullback. So pullbacks are natural. This is very good. In a perfect world right now, Bitcoin goes sideways and up and Solana takes off. But I'm under the impression that Solana is going to pull back with Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is going to pull back and Solana with it. So that would make sense for us to see a retracement to, at least fill this fair value gap. Speaking of which, taking a look here at CME futures, you can see Solana's fair value gap still is unfilled between 145 and 148. Okay. So just bear in mind that still needs to happen. This previous one of 122 to 124 is seeming less likely, but that's still on the table. Just a lot less likely, I would say. Other than that, not much else we can really note. You can see slight divergences on the hourly time frame for Bitcoin, just kind of letting us know that this window of opportunity, you should have secured profits on a long by now, and getting super greedy isn't really the best call. All obviously depends on your leverage amount and your position sizing, but you generally want to be using lower leverage, lower position sizing, because as you can kind of see here, we're shifting momentum here for Solana, and the same with Bitcoin as well. So we're above support. We have a lot more reasons why the price will probably go up than it will go down, but I think a short-term correction still is in the cards, and I'd much rather wait for an opportunity that never happens than to try to FOMO into the top and get a bad trade. So I'm going to be leaning on the side of waiting for a good entry here for Solana in the 136 to 145 range, just so we can kind of get into that open interest area and effectively take a long to the upside. Now, pending Bitcoin doesn't lose 88.5 or 90,000, we should be able to see this support range hold like a champ. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. Cool. So that's what we got there. That's Solana in a nutshell. It's a pretty big nutshell. But either way, I hope you learned something today. Comment below. Please don't forget to hit the like button on every single video, and like the Twitter post too, folks. I mean, get a lot of good feedback there as well without much interaction. That does help kind of grow the channel. So support me, support you. How about that? I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. But I look forward to working with you if you want to become a better trader. CryptoCash.tech is a site. We secured nice profits on an ETH short. We shorted 1795 to 1754. A little 10x short there at 23%. All right. Hope you have a good rest of your day, folks. We'll see you again soon. Be careful out there. Thank you. Bye-bye.